The massive Galactic Empire ship hung in Earth's orbit like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Its surface gleamed with a metallic purple sheen that had never been seen in human space before. At 12 kilometers long, it dwarfed the largest human vessels nearby, making them look like tiny fish swimming next to a whale. Inside the United Earth Defense Command Center, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the alien vessel through multiple camera feeds. Her weathered face showed no emotion, but her fingers drummed steadily on the steel conference table. Around her, military and civilian leaders from Earth's 12 colonies sat in tense silence. The Empire's first message had arrived 3 hours ago. Prepare to receive our delegates. Resistance is inadvisable. They hadn't asked for permission. They hadn't even bothered with introductions. They simply assumed Earth would comply. That told Sarah everything she needed to know about these aliens. The massive view screen flickered to life, showing the arrival of the Empire's shuttle in the diplomatic bay. 6 tall, humanoid figures stepped out, their skin a pale blue-gray color that seemed to shimmer under the lights. They wore elaborate robes covered in what looked like military medals and ceremonial pins. Their leader, who introduced himself as High Commander Zaxel, stood nearly 8 feet tall. His face had an expression that Sarah had seen many times before, the look of someone who was used to being obeyed without question. "We represent the Galactic Empire," Zaxel announced, his universal translator making his words sound artificially smooth. "We control 10,000 star systems and have brought prosperity to hundreds of species. Your civilization has been deemed worthy of inclusion." Sarah noticed how he said inclusion rather than membership, a subtle but important difference. "We have studied your 12 colonies," Zaxel continued. "Your technology is primitive but promising. Your people show potential. Submit to imperial rule, and we will guide your development. Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate our power. The choice is yours, but be aware. No civilization has ever successfully resisted the Empire." The room remained silent. Sarah could feel the tension building as the Empire's delegates waited for Earth's response. They clearly expected either immediate acceptance or perhaps fearful negotiation. Instead, Sarah stood up slowly. At 5'6", she was barely half Zaxel's height, but her presence filled the room. 25 years of military service had taught her how to command attention without saying a word. "High Commander," she said calmly, "I appreciate you traveling all this way to deliver your message. Now, I have one for you. Run." Zaxel blinked all 4 of his eyes in what appeared to be confusion. "Perhaps your translator is malfunctioning. Did you understand that we represent the Galactic Empire?" "We understood perfectly," Sarah replied. "That's why we're warning you. Leave our space. Don't return. We're giving you one chance. More than you offered us." The alien delegates exchanged glances. One of them actually laughed, a strange chirping sound that echoed through the chamber. "You have 30 ships," Zaxel said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. "We have tens of thousands. Your most advanced weapons are primitive compared to ours. Your colonies are unprotected. Why would you choose destruction over prosperity?" Sarah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Because you've never fought humans before. You think you're ready for war. We invented it. We perfected it. We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves, and now you want to give us an external enemy to unite against." She shook her head slowly. "This is your only warning. Run. Because if you don't, you're going to learn why every human child knows the old saying. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. And we've had a lot of training in war." The Empire's delegates left the chamber in angry silence, clearly unused to such defiance. As they departed, Sarah turned to her staff and said quietly, "Send the signal. All colonies begin Operation Dark Forest." They wanted a demonstration of human power. Her smile turned grim. "Let's give them one they'll never forget." The Empire's attack came at dawn, Earth time. 100 massive warships appeared from hyperspace, their purple hulls blocking out the stars. High Commander Zaxel stood on his flagship's bridge, expecting to witness a quick surrender. Instead, he watched in growing confusion as Earth's defensive fleet of 30 ships scattered in seemingly random directions. "They're running away," one of his officers said with a laugh. As expected from such a primitive. The officer never finished his sentence. A massive asteroid, hidden behind Earth's moon and fitted with human stealth technology, slammed into 20 Empire ships at near-light speed. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. "Impossible," Zaxel shouted. "Check the sensors. How did we miss?" Another explosion cut him off. This time, it came from within his own fleet. 3 Empire ships suddenly burst apart from the inside. On his command screen, Zaxel watched in horror as tiny dots, human boarding parties, appeared on ship after ship. They had somehow slipped through the Empire's supposedly impenetrable shields. "Sir," his second-in-command reported, voice shaking, "the humans. They're using modified mining equipment to cut through our hulls. They're turning their civilian tools into weapons." Before Zaxel could respond, Earth's retreating ships suddenly turned around. They had used the asteroid attack as cover to move into perfect firing positions. Now they attacked from all directions, using maneuvers that seemed to defy basic space combat logic. "They're flying directly at our ships," an officer screamed. "They'll crash." But the human ships pulled up at the last second, their near-collision approaches allowing them to slip past the Empire's automated defense systems. Each close pass left Empire ships crippled, their engines dark and weapons disabled. In the chaos, Zaxel received a transmission from one of his captains. "Sir, the humans. They're broadcasting something on all channels." Through the command room speakers came the sound of human music, something their databases identified as classical orchestra. The piece was called Ride of the Valkyries. "They're playing music during battle." Zaxel couldn't believe it. "Have they gone mad?" "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "we've lost 50 ships. The humans, they're using our own formation against us. When we cluster together for protection, they're using our ships as shields against our own weapons." On the main screen, Zaxel watched a human vessel, barely the size of an Empire support ship, charged straight toward his fleet's center. Multiple ships fired at it, but it dodged with impossible precision. At the last second, it released what looked like thousands of small objects. "Scanning," his officer reported. "There, mining charges, modify tow." The explosion consumed another 10 Empire ships. The human vessel escaped through the gap it had created, its hull scared but intact. After 2 hours of battle, Zaxel gave the retreat order. Of his 100 ships, only 40 remained operational. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, a final message came through from Earth's Admiral Chen. "Next time, bring your real fleet. This was just a demonstration." Back on Earth, Admiral Chen watched the Empire ships disappear. Around her, the command center erupted in cheers, but she remained serious. She turned to her staff and said, "Begin Phase 2. They'll be back with a bigger force. Next time, we show them why humans don't believe in fighting fair." In space, Earth's ships began collecting debris from the battle. Every piece of Empire technology would be studied, reverse-engineered, and improved upon. After all, humans had another saying: "The best way to learn is from your enemies." And class was just beginning. Deep within the Empire's central archive station, Chief Researcher Valtech stared at his holographic display with growing concern. The station, a massive structure floating in space, held records from thousands of conquered civilizations, but what he found in the oldest sections chilled his blood. "High Commander," Valtech said into his communicator, his voice trembling. "You need to see this immediately." When Zaxel arrived hours later, his usual confident stride was gone. The defeat at Earth had shaken him deeply. "What's so important that you pulled me away from the War Council?" Valtech pointed to the ancient text floating in the air. "This document is over 50,000 years old. It's from the Cthulhu civilization, a species that went extinct long ago. He pressed a button, and the alien symbols transformed into modern language. Warning to all who follow. Valtech read aloud. Beware the species that masters war through self-destruction. They walk on two legs, they look soft and weak, but their minds are forged in endless conflict. Their home world bears the scars of 10,000 wars. They are few in number, but each one is a weapon. Zaxel's 4 eyes narrowed. You think this refers to humans? There's more, Valtech said, switching to another document. This one is from the Kravax Empire, which disappeared 30,000 years ago. It describes encountering a primitive planet where the inhabitants had split the atom just to use it as a weapon against themselves. He pulled up image after image. Ancient cave paintings showing bipedal figures fighting, star charts marking a danger zone around a yellow sun, and detailed warnings about a species that turned everything, even peaceful tools, into weapons of war. All these records, Valtech explained, they're describing the same region of space where Earth is now. Different times, different civilizations, but they all say the same thing. Avoid the war makers. Zaxel slammed his fist on the console. Impossible. These are myths, stories to frighten children. Humans are barely space-capable. They've only colonized 12 worlds. That's what makes them more dangerous, a new voice said. They turned to see Dr. Marin, the Empire's chief xenobiologist, entering the archive chamber. She had been studying footage from the recent battle. Look at this, she said, projecting a new image. Human history is nothing but war. They fight over territory, resources, beliefs, even differences in appearance among their own species. But here's what's truly frightening. After each war, they get stronger. They learn. They improve. She showed them battle footage from Earth. See how they use that asteroid. That tactic came from an ancient human book about a Cold War between their own nations. The boarding parties, adapted from their ancient Viking warriors. Even their battle music was composed for war centuries ago. Valtech nodded slowly. Every other species evolved to avoid conflict. It's the natural path. But humans evolved through conflict, Dr. Marin finished. Their entire civilization is built on the foundations of countless wars. Their technology, their strategy, their very way of thinking. It's all shaped by combat. Zaxel stood in silence, processing this information. Finally, he asked, why didn't we know this before? Why didn't our scouts report this? Because we looked at their technology level, their number of colonies, their apparent strength, Dr. Marin explained. We never looked at their history. We never understood what makes them different. A junior researcher burst into the room, holding a datapad. Sir, we've detected massive energy readings from all 12 human colonies. They're building something, but it's like nothing we've ever seen before. Zaxel looked at the ancient warnings floating around him, then at the battle footage still playing. For the first time in his life, he felt real fear. Send word to the fleet, he ordered. Tell them we're not fighting a young civilization. We're fighting one that has spent its entire history preparing for this moment. 10,000 Empire warships filled the space around Jupiter's orbit. The massive fleet cast shadows on the gas giants, swirling storms, their purple hulls reflecting the distant sunlight. On his new flagship's bridge, High Commander Zaxel watched the final ships arrive through hyperspace. The largest fleet in Empire history, his admiral announced proudly. The humans won't stand a chance. But Zaxel remembered the ancient warnings. Deploy in scattered formation, he ordered. No ships within asteroid strike distance of each other. The fleet spread out, learning from their previous defeat. Long-range scanners swept the space ahead, checking for hidden weapons. This time, they would not be caught off guard. The first surprise came from Mars. The red planet's surface suddenly cracked open like an egg, revealing massive cannons hidden beneath the rust-colored sand. Before the Empire fleet could react, electromagnetic pulses shot out, disabling the engines of 300 ships. Impossible, the admiral shouted. They turned their entire colony into a weapon. Venus was next. The human terraforming platforms that had been slowly making the planet habitable suddenly reversed their function. Clouds of corrosive gas burst forth, engulfing nearby Empire ships. The supposedly indestructible hull plating dissolved within minutes. They're not just fighting with ships, Zaxol realized in horror. They're weaponizing the entire solar system. The main human fleet appeared next, but it was different now. Their ships had been modified with stolen Empire technology, improved in ways the Empire's engineers had never imagined. They moved faster, hit harder, and seemed to predict every counterattack. "Sir," a tactical officer called out, "the humans, they're sending us a message. It's being broadcast from Earth." Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined. "We warned you to run," she said simply. "Everything that happens next is your choice." Suddenly, every human mining vessel in the system activated at once. These ships, normally used for breaking up asteroids, turned their industrial cutting beams toward the Empire fleet. Hundreds of ships were sliced apart before they could raise their shields. "Status report," Zaxol demanded. "We've lost 3,000 ships in the first wave alone." His officer responded, voice shaking. "The humans, they're not just fighting us, they're hunting us." Each human colony revealed new surprises. Jupiter's mining stations launched swarms of automated drones. Saturn's research outposts released electromagnetic storms that scrambled Empire communications. Even the small scientific bases on Uranus and Neptune had been turned into fortress worlds. "Fall back to defensive positions," Zaxol ordered, but it was too late. The humans had learned from every encounter, adapted their strategy, and prepared countermeasures for every Empire tactic. They fought like a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war, because they had. "Sir," his second-in-command reported grimly, "we're detecting something massive approaching from Earth's moon. It's impossible." The moon's surface split open, revealing what the humans had been building in secret. A massive warship emerged, constructed from a combination of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered Empire technology. It was larger than anything either civilization had ever built. "They hollowed out their moon," someone whispered in disbelief. "They turned it into a shipyard." Admiral Chen's voice came through again. "This is the guardian of Earth. We built it in 2 weeks. Imagine what we can do in 2 months. Last chance to retreat." Zaxol looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was gone, and the battle had barely begun. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were showing the galaxy why they had warned the Empire to run. And the demonstration was far from over. In the medical bay of an Empire support ship, Dr. Marin interviewed another shaking soldier. Like hundreds before him, this warrior of the Empire, who had fought in dozens of conquest campaigns, could barely speak about what he'd seen. They don't stop," the soldier whispered, his blue-gray skin pale with fear. "We shot one of them, took off his arm, but he kept fighting. Used his own severed arm to jam our ship's engine intake." "Who does that?" Dr. Marin recorded everything. As the Empire's chief xenobiologist, she needed to understand what made humans so different from every other species they'd encountered. "Tell me about their tactics," she prompted gently. "There are no tactics," the soldier burst out. "They do things that make no sense. We saw a human ship heavily damaged. Instead of retreating for repairs like any sane species, they deliberately crashed it into our defense line, but not before the crew set their reactor to explode." In another corner of the medical bay, a pilot rocked back and forth, mumbling, "They're in the walls. They're always in the walls." Dr. Marin had heard similar stories from other survivors. Human soldiers had developed a technique of cutting tiny holes in Empire ship hulls, just big enough to slip through in their spacesuits. They would infiltrate by the hundreds, moving through maintenance shafts, and between walls like ghosts. Most disturbing, she wrote in her report, is their psychological warfare. They broadcast messages in our own language, telling our troops exactly what they plan to do. And then they do it. It's not boasting. It's not threats. It's simply information. This terrifies our soldiers more than any battle cry. On the command ship, High Commander Zaxel read reports from his surviving captains. Each told the same story. Humans didn't fight like any known species. They mixed strategies from their countless wars, adapting and improvising constantly. "Sir," a communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from a human ship, audio only." Through the speakers came the sound of human laughter, followed by a child's voice reciting what seemed to be a nursery rhyme. "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies." 3 Empire ships exploded. "They're teaching their children war songs," an officer whispered in horror. In her lab, Dr. Marin made another discovery. She had been studying human entertainment broadcasts, what they called movies and video games. "They don't just practice war," she reported to Zaxel. "They imagine it. They create thousands of scenarios, play them out for fun, think about every possible way to fight. Their entertainment teaches warfare to their children before they can even walk." A tactical officer burst into the room. "Sir, the humans. They're launching something new. Hundreds of small ships, barely big enough for one pilot." On the screen, they watched tiny human fighters zip between Empire ships. The pilots were pulling maneuvers that should have killed them from forces alone. "How are they doing that?" Zaxel demanded. Dr. Marin checked her data. "They're using modified racing ships. Their pilots learned these maneuvers competing for sport. They turned their games into weapons." In the medical bay, the first soldier was still talking. "We captured one. Asked why they fight like this. Know what he said? He laughed and told us humans don't like to fight. We're just better at it than anyone else because we've had more practice. More practice. They call their worst wars practice." Dr. Marin finished her report with a simple conclusion. "We cannot defeat humanity because we don't understand them. They don't follow military doctrine. They don't fight for glory or expansion. They fight to win, using every trick, every advantage, every dirty tactic they've learned from millennia of killing each other. The Empire has conquered hundreds of civilizations, but we've never faced anyone like humanity, because no other species has spent their entire history preparing for this moment." In the Empire's Central Archive Station, Chief Researcher Valtek worked frantically to translate more ancient texts. His hand shook as he decoded warning after warning about humanity. Behind him, High Commander Zaxel and Dr. Marin watched the holographic displays with growing dread. "Listen to this," Valtek said, his voice hoarse from hours of reading. "From the archives of the Keth civilization, dated 40,000 years ago. They created weapons that could destroy their entire world, then built thousands of them. Not to use them, but to prevent their use. They call it deterrence. What kind of species thinks this way?" Dr. Marin nodded slowly. "That matches what we've learned. Humans don't just fight wars, they study them. Every conflict in their history became a lesson, a tutorial for future generations." A new message flashed on the main screen. Another Empire fleet had been destroyed, this time by what appeared to be civilian cargo ships modified into massive bombs. "They're not even using their main fleet anymore," Zaxel said quietly. "They're just showing us different ways they can kill us." Valtek pulled up another ancient text. "This one is fascinating. It's from the Yth species. We watched them for centuries. Their greatest warriors were not those who fought the most battles, but those who studied the most wars. They build schools dedicated to warfare. They treat it like science." "Schools of war?" Zaxel asked. Dr. Marin checked her data. "Yes, they call them military academies. They have thousands of them. While our soldiers train in combat, their soldiers study psychology, engineering, history, and strategy. They don't just learn how to fight. They learn why fighting works. The station shook slightly as another battle raged nearby. Through the viewport, they could see human ships using Empire debris as improvised weapons, launching chunks of destroyed ships at high speeds. "Here's the oldest text we found," Valtech said, projecting a new hologram. "It's over 100,000 years old. It says, 'The danger of humans is not their strength or their technology. It is their memory. Every war teaches them. Every battle makes them stronger. They learn from defeat better than any species learns from victory.'" Dr. Marin walked to the window, watching the battle outside. "That's why they warned us to run. They weren't threatening us. They were trying to prevent what they knew would happen." "What do you mean?" Zaxel asked. "Look at their history," she explained. "Every time humans face a powerful enemy, they don't just fight back. They evolve. They adapt. They take their enemy's strengths and improve upon them. In just weeks, they've taken our technology and found ways to use it that our engineers never imagined." Valtech pulled up images from Earth's history. Their wars followed a pattern. Small conflicts taught them about personal combat. Larger wars taught them about strategy. Global wars taught them about logistics and technology. And now we're teaching them about interstellar warfare. Zaxel finished, finally understanding. A junior researcher rushed into the room. "Sir, the humans, they've started broadcasting on all frequencies. They're sharing our tactical data with every species in the galaxy. They're teaching others how to fight us." Dr. Marin turned from the window. "That's the final proof. Humans don't want to rule or conquer. They want to teach. Every war in their history became a lesson, and now they're turning our invasion into the biggest lesson of all." Zaxel watched another Empire ship explode outside. "We thought we were testing their strength," he said quietly. "But they were really teaching us something. Why they warned us to run. Not because they wanted to fight, but because they knew they would win." Valtech finished. "And every day we keep fighting just gives them more chances to show the galaxy what they've learned from millennia of war." Outside the station, Earth's new moonship emerged from hyperspace, its massive form blocking out the stars. The lesson was about to continue. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Empire had never been so quiet. 5,000 representatives from across the Empire's conquered worlds sat in stunned silence as they watched the latest battle footage. On the massive screen, Earth's moonship, now named Humanity's Reminder, systematically disabled another Empire fleet without destroying a single vessel. High Commander Zaxel stood before them, his proud posture now bent with exhaustion. "The humans could have killed them all," he said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Instead, they disabled our ships and sent the crews home. They call it mercy, showing restraint even when victory is certain." Dr. Marin stepped forward with her final report. "In 3 weeks of war, we have lost 60% of our fleet. The humans have captured enough of our technology to match our remaining ships. But most importantly, they've shown us something we never understood before." She played a new recording. It showed human soldiers helping injured Empire troops after a battle. Their gentleness contradicted everything the Empire had seen in combat. "We thought they were natural warriors," Dr. Marin explained. "We were wrong. Humans don't love war. They're just very, very good at it. Each time we attack, they show us a new way of defeating us. Not to humiliate us, but to teach us why they warned us to run." The chamber erupted in whispers as Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen. The human commander looked tired but resolute. "People of the Empire," she said calmly, "you have a choice to make. We don't want to rule you. We don't want your worlds. We don't even want to fight you. We just want you to understand why we warned you." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Every weapon we've used against you came from our own history. Every tactic was born from our own wars. We've spent thousands of years learning the cost of conflict. That's why we tried to warn you away." The screen showed images from Earth's history, peace treaties, humanitarian aid, international cooperation. "We can be more than warriors," Admiral Chen continued. We'd rather share technology, trade goods, exchange knowledge. But if you force us to fight, we will show you every lesson our species has learned from its bloody history. In the council chamber, a young Empire delegate stood up. How can we trust them? They've destroyed our fleets. Zaxol shook his head. No, they disabled our fleets. They could have killed us all. Instead, they're trying to teach us something their species learned long ago. The true strength of a civilization isn't in how well it fights, but in how hard it tries to avoid fighting. Dr. Marin activated one final hologram, a three-dimensional map showing trade routes between Earth's colonies. Look at their worlds. Their ships aren't designed for war. We forced them to convert them. Their colonies aren't fortresses. We made them turn them into weapons. Everything they used against us was adapted from peaceful technology. The council chamber fell silent again as understanding dawned. The humans hadn't been preparing for war all this time. They had been building peace. They just happened to be very, very good at converting that peace into war when necessary. The choice is simple, Zaxol said. We can keep fighting and watch them demonstrate 10,000 more ways to defeat us, or we can accept their original warning was meant to help us. One by one, the council members stood. The vote was unanimous for the first time in Empire history. Peace with humanity. When they transmitted their surrender, Admiral Chen's response was simple. Thank you for listening. Now let us show you what humans can really do when we're not forced to fight. And so the Empire learned humanity's final lesson. True strength lies not in the ability to wage war, but in the wisdom to avoid it. The warning to run hadn't been a threat. It had been humanity's last attempt to prevent unnecessary bloodshed from a species that knew its cost all too well.